hurricane, a tidal wave. Essence perfect, life looks brilliant. Give me more of this. I'm out of control, about to blow, and I've been caught in the undertow. So toxic, but I can't get enough. You're burying me, burying me. Yeah, you're burying me, burying me. You've got me hypnotized. Push me out of myself. You've got me hypnotized. I can see, I can hear, going crazy, but the light has got me hypnotized. You've got me hypnotized. Get you out of my head again. Is it wrong? Is it right? It's like I've won my final war without a fight. I'm out of control, about to blow, and I've been caught in the undertow. So toxic, but I can't get enough. You bury me, bury me. I know you bury me, bury me. You've got me hypnotized. Push me out of myself. You've got me hypnotized. I can see, I can hear, going crazy, but the light has got me hypnotized. You've got me hypnotized. Get you out of my head. Get you out of my head again.
Never gonna stop, never gonna change, never gonna do the things you say. I run my own way to get there. Pulls are calling that the eyes seem to care. In the air, no more crowd, just the opposite kind of few clouds. So tell me this time is coming, I'm sick of all your lies. Why don't you try to be wise? Know that I need you anyway. I never wanted to be alive, just to feel like I'm fading. And though I have legs up beat it down, I've crossed the lines just to tell you. Don't lead the way, don't even say that I turn with a just play in the rain. I feel like I'm fading.
And boom, just like that, it's Thursday night, and you know what that means. It's party time with these guys. We're the Video Bros. I'm Bobby Munson, the man beside me. He's the man with the angelic voice. He's Papa Smokes. Papa Smokes, happy Thursday. How you doing, brother?
Woo, I'm doing all right, Munson. It's Thursday again. We're down to business. We're here for Ring Respect Radio. I'm always loving it. Let's get it live, man.
You bet, yeah. And we got our big topic today, Papa Smokes, because the Video Bros are back talking about MLW. We're going to keep those MLW reviews up. You know, we probably shouldn't have completely left them in the first place. Maybe we need to dig our heels back in. But we're going to start here with the Kings of Colosseum tonight. We will get around to that business momentarily. I also want to mention that super fight from MLW next month, where that main event, Alex Kane going to be involved in the championship picture again. Beaumaye, Papa Smokes. Let's root for our boy Alex Kane. That review,
Sure.
I've already got word that Andre C would like to join us in doing the review of that one on Bring Respect
All
Radio.
right.
So that's going to be
Sounds good.
Looking forward to
Yeah.
that. And we got Bass up in the house. It's the Bass
Yeah.
Bag. Good day, my sweet kings. How's the day treating you? It's going super well, Bass, especially with Double Arm Dragon PPW on Saturday, February the 22nd. Seats are almost already fully sold out, baby. I'm telling you, one of the quickest turnarounds we've had in PPW's history so far. Again, if you don't have your seat yet, what are you waiting for? We have very minimal space left before the general admission goes on sale. And look, you say his name and he appears. Andre C's in the house. Yes, Super Fight Andre looking to join us here for the review. Looking forward to having him on. But speaking of our show here, Papa Smokes, next Thursday night, we're bringing it back. It is WTF Do We Know About Wrestling Trivia Night here, baby. It's going to be a good one. We're going to be definitely joined. Speaking of Andre, he's going to be participating and joining us on screen. Lauren is returning to participate once again as well, too. And who knows, maybe we'll get another one or two on screen to join us for trivia. It's going to be a fun night. We're going to have the competition, but this is going to be something it kind of carries over from the last trivia, Papa Smokes, but Mark Talks Wrestling, our good friend Mark from the channel here, who is on POV with me. You see him across many shows here on OLE. Mark has gone ahead and said that he wants to sponsor the trivia nights for the whole year. So every single month that we do trivia, Mark is going to be donating 10 pounds, 10 English pounds to whichever charity the winner of the trivia picks. So whoever on screen with us wins the trivia, they will pick the charity. Mark will be donating 10 English pounds every single month to that charity. So that is a wonderful, awesome thing that's going to be going on. Really happy about that. So thank you to Mark. Go check out Mark's channels outside of OLE. That's Mark Talks Wrestling, Mark Talks Football, and Mark Talks Gaming. Check those channels out. Like, follow, and subscribe. What a great dude, and so happy that he's going to be doing that throughout the year, Papa Smokes.
So very cool, and what a good idea, and makes me feel good being part of Ring Respect Radio when we're giving back a little bit to some charities, all in the good name of having fun and a little bit of sport with the trivia night. It kind of even ups the stakes a little bit, Munson. We have our kind of imaginary belts for YouTube and Twitch, but with this now we've got real money going to real charity. It's just going to make the competition even more interesting.
It really is. And yeah, it's a great addition to it. So I'm hoping that everybody who's going to be on screen is looking forward to picking their charity. Hopefully you pull through, get that win, that donation will go through. And then all of you in the chat as well, too, that are going to participate to get either that YouTube or that Twitch chat championship and those bragging rights until next month's trivia night. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it, Pop Smokes. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be fun. As we said, PPW right around the corner. That's going to be exciting fun. I'm looking forward to seeing the nation live in person once again. It has been far too long because we usually have about, say, 6 weeks. But because the last show was at the start of December and this one's at the end of February, it just feels like that long gap, too long of a gap. So many great friends that we're going to be seeing once again. Looking forward to it. Can't wait. And again, on top of that, all the wonderful action we're going to be seeing. We have a new champion for hell's sake. Like, Jesus, we haven't even touched on the surface the fact that we have a new champion and probably a lot of questions to be had. We saw even last time out, El Assassino showing a little bit of animosity still towards the new champ.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's so much to talk about with PPW. But yeah, like you say, a brand new champion, the biggest favorite of the crowd for years and years along here in Saskatoon, since we've been going to the matches, Munson, and working them since before PPW. The biggest, most popular wrestler in Saskatoon has been Michael Allen Richard Clark. They love him. He looks great. He's got the great moves. He's got the great body. He's got the chant and the pose and all that stuff. They love it. And my God, he gets the job done against the Sheik, the dreaded Sheik Akbar Shabazz, who has been using nefarious means to get through all of his title defenses. And he lost the belt briefly, but got it back. And you could just feel the fans' collective groan as they realize, my God, we have this awful person as champion again, and then look what happens. Michael Allen Clark makes the dream come true and brings the belt back to the people in Saskatoon. Dude, the pop for that match, for that pinfall at the end was absolutely insane. We've heard a few huge ones over the years. This one was absolutely huge. Now the fans get what they want. They've got a champion that they love and they can look up to. Michael Allen, Richard Clark.
You bet. We'll talk a whole lot more about it as everything starts to unfold when we get closer to that date. But as I said, tickets are almost sold out in the seating areas. General admission will go on sale soon. And trust me, you don't want to be left out in the cold. So don't take your gamble on standing in line. Make sure that you get your tickets ahead of time. Information on where to get those tickets is coming soon. There could be some adjustments to where that is going to be, but stay tuned to Prairie Pro Wrestling on all social media, and you'll know exactly where to go to secure your tickets to Double Arm Dragon. And what a cool poster. What a cool setup.
Yeah.
The whole Nintendo vibe. We got away from the Love is Dead showing that we usually do in February, going for a different vibe this time around. I think it's a great little fit for us.
I think so too. I love the name. I love the poster. And one of the things I like about this show coming up is, like you mentioned, it's been a long stretch since the last one. Not only a long stretch, but the doldrums of winter, as they like to say, the darkest nights, the longest nights, the cold, the snow, the shoveling, all the parts of winter that can be challenging and difficult for everybody. But everybody wants, all our fans are going to go to this show because they love it, because it breaks up the monotony of winter. It's a light in the darkness. It's a whole bunch of fun to have on a Saturday night. Memories that you can live with for as long as you want. You can drink until you don't remember anything anymore, or you can bring your kids and have your kids have some interaction with a wrestler. That's the kind of memories that they'll remember and that you'll remember too. Awesome stuff. Great time. Can't wait to see the nation.
Oh, it's going to be a hell of a time. Can't wait, Pop Smoke. Stay tuned for more announcements coming about Double Arm Dragon from Prairie Pro Wrestling. It's going to be a gooder. But yeah, as always, Pop Smoke, we are that channel where that particular show that likes to dig deep into the smaller side of pro wrestling, the independent companies, the ones that are bumping and grinding their way to make sure that they are developing the stars of tomorrow. We do that quite often here on the channel. We also do our history stuff as well too. Speaking of that history stuff, a trip through the territories, I have it on good authority that we might be doing another one that goes a little bit outside of the borderlines of the land that we live in here anyway, just a little over the seas to a place called Puerto Rico. And we're going to not only cover that area of professional wrestling history, but our good friend Astrid Pizarro maybe and most likely is going to be joining us here on Ring Respect Radio for a trip through the territory to talk all about the history of pro wrestling in Puerto Rico. Very much looking forward to that.
Myself, very much also, Munson. I've watched bits and pieces of Puerto Rican wrestling over the years. I've heard a lot of old wrestlers tell stories about wrestling there. There are some wild stories about Puerto Rico, but make no mistake, they featured quality wrestling that drew a lot of people and a lot of money for a long, long time, particularly under head promoter and owner Carlos Colon. We'll talk a lot more about him, but I'm also thrilled to have Astrid. I hope that she is able to guest with us that night because she knows the island of Puerto Rico. She has some knowledge about the history and the feeling of wrestling around Puerto Rico. So that will be invaluable to our chat for if we can include her.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. Looking forward to all the great things that we got lined up. And again, continued coverage of independent wrestling companies for places like New Zealand or Australia coming your way on Ring Respect Radio. But what we got for you tonight, Papa Smokes, we thought we'd bring it back. Speaking of smaller companies, maybe not so independent as we've been covering, but the one that kind of got us in this direction, the one that we talked about for a long time, that's Major League Wrestling, MLW. When they started going to the live show aspect, we tried to do the watch-alongs there for a while. Things didn't always link up quite so well, and then it kind of fell into I was trying to cover them with different various people. it never quite had the same vibe as it did when we were watching the old Fusion shows and be able to sit down here on our program, Ring Respect Radio, and deliver that to the viewers. So I like this idea. When we talked about it a little while ago, talked about covering Super Fight that Andre is going to join us for next month. You had mentioned earlier this week that, hey, Kings of Colosseum is there. Should we cover this? And I thought, you know what, let's do it. We knew the results of a couple of the matches, but why not? Let's dig in now. Kings of Colosseum, we always remember it being a pretty heavily promoted card for MLW. And so we thought we'd give this another shot, give it a look in. And I want to know your immediate thoughts, Papa Smokes, as a whole, without the match breakdowns or anything like that, in terms of production, the feel, the vibe from the audience. How did you feel getting back in MLW here?
Honestly, Munson, you know what my feelings were like when we started to drift away from MLW. It was, I had kind of a disappointment. I had a bit of not a sour taste in my mouth, but something like that kind of. I bear no ill will against the company or the people working there, the talent, or anything like that whatsoever. But it just started. It fell off in quality. You and I started watching and covering MLW during its strongest time, for sure, with Jacob Fatu and Alexander Hammerstone and the Almighty Sheik and Myron Reed and Richard Holiday and all the great talents they had there during that time. It's such a stacked roster, and you just kind of saw that drift away over time. MLW is not like the big companies where you might go and get signed and stay there for, indefinitely for years if you can, maybe even longer than that. But I don't think MLW is really like that. I think everybody goes there for a while and then moves on their way as well, and may come back and may not. But it just its roster changed so much that we kind of drifted away. But in watching this show, kind of started to get that old feeling back. I love their presentation. I love the way they do their videos. I love the way they edit everything. I like Dombrowski and this new guy on color. And I like the way they have the sports-based presentation, particularly for the main event. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but making it look like a fight. It reminds me of watching the old days of ESPN when they would have the Friday night fights. It would be the boxing, and you'd see the little training montages, and the commentators would set up the whole history of the fight, and then the fighters and how it got signed, and the feelings between them and all that kind of stuff. And then the tale of the tape and the reach and the weight and the style, and you get to see a little head-to-head look at the wrestlers. They don't just tell you their names. I just like the whole way that they present this. And the other thing I like about MLW is still the same now, is that international flavor, as we always called it. They make the effort to get wrestlers from Mexico, lots of them, CMLL and AAA, also Japan, the various promotions, Dragon Gate and whatever else that they have a deal with over in Japan. So I like seeing some of these lesser known international talents, because the big shows will get the big guys, but MLW gets some of the other guys who are quite talented and quite worth seeing. So again, I started to get that old feeling back, like, yeah, I do like MLW. I like the feel they have. I like their presentation. Let's check this out, sis. So we'll go on and talk about the rest of the card now, but positive feelings right off the bat.
For sure. And you know what? Positive feelings just got more positive, because look who's back in our chat for the first time in a long time.
Yeah.
Welcome back, Brian Carter. So good to see you. So glad that you're able to be here. Says MLW was like an 8 during the end of the Fusion days, fell to about a 2, is back to about a 4 or 5 now. The roster's still a bit of the biggest weakness. There could be some adjustments there, but I think that they're going in the right direction. Brian also saying that's some passion for Papa Smokes right there. And there was a lot. I would say there's definitely a lot more pluses on this show than there's nitpicky negatives. I mean, if I'll say one thing, because I don't even want to go into it during this review, is the telenovela crap can stop. It really can. I'm over it. I don't care anymore. Selena De La Renta deserves better. Cesar Duran, I'm completely over him as any sort of figure in MLW. Hate to say it. The guy's got talent in what he does, but I just don't care anymore. That thing got played out so badly and was one of the, to me, the detriments of MLW as it started to decline. As they showed it again here, I'm like, this felt so out of place to how they designed and made this feel like a sporting event. And then they kind of shoehorned it in right out of nowhere. And I'm like, this felt wrong. It felt more wrong than it is ever felt in the history of watching MLW. And they could do without it, and their card would have been just fine. Absolutely just fine.
I can't disagree with you. In the previous days, towards the end of when we were covering MLW a year and a half ago or whenever it was, they had kind of the Lucha Underground whole thing or Azteca Underground thing coming in. And there were the plots and there were the rumors about Cesar Duran and the files and people sneaking into offices and stealing documents and this and that and the other thing. It was kind of getting laborious then. And we watched this show. They're still doing it. It's got to still be the same plot line. And then I saw Selena De La Renta at first. I didn't even recognize her. She looks different. I didn't think she would be back, or I also didn't hear that she was working with them again. So all kinds of weird surprises, but some stuff never changes also.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, if I'm going to nitpick, that's going to be my biggest nitpick. Other than, okay, like let's get into the first match here for a second. So we got the Gravity Gamble ladder match that apparently Eric Bischoff set up recently during his stint at One Shot. This match consists of Akira, Mods Cruel Kruger, BRG, Matthew Justice, and Kevin Knight. Two of these things, or a few of these things, don't quite feel like the others in this matchup. You've got a real contrast of sizes, of styles. I know they like to go to that for that because, you know, that's their motto. But this was Money in the Bank with more briefcases to go through, more waiting for people to climb and open shit, and just long periods of things not happening. And that was my gripe with this, other than there's a lot of talent inside that ring. There was great skill from pretty much all of them. I mean, I'm not the biggest Akira fan because of the styles of matches he does, but I'm not going to take away and say the guy's not talented at all. BRG, I mean, he's whatever, not really my cup of tea, but he has his place, I guess. But then you see boys like It's Mods in there. You got, you know, Matthew Justice is another big boy getting in. And then, of course, you got Mr. Thomas, your close personal friend, Papa Smokes, because he had to fill in for Kevin Knight of the Beaumaye Fight Club, who got taken out by the Andersons before this thing kicked off. And again, awesome to see the Andersons there. They'll be seen later on in the night with this whole thing as well, too. And that's a great addition in terms of tag team wrestling for MLW. So I'm glad that they're over there doing that thing. They take out Kevin Knight. So Mr. Thomas inserts himself right in. And man, Mr. Thomas is so damn good in that ring. Like, so underrated in terms of what he produces when he goes out there. He is the guy who goes out there to fill in for different things, and he does everything so well. He's always willing to do it, and he can keep up with every person they put him in that ring with.
No, absolutely. And it's no surprise that he's a good, close personal friend of Papa Smokes and the guy that's ready to step up all the time. Now, he's been with MLW for quite a long time, possibly even longer than Alex Kane was, but yeah, just stepping in for his injured buddy. And then he's good, man. He's a big guy. He's 6'7" or whatever, 260 some pounds, a big boy, but he can also fly. That flying somersault he did over the top rope to the floor onto all those guys just does it absolutely perfectly. And he just seems like he's such a humble, nice guy, but he's there for Beaumaye. They're a babyface faction at this time. As they informed us, Alex Kane was fired by Eric Bischoff recently, but we'll see if that's going to keep him away from MLW or not. We'll have more on that later, but yeah, this match is not exactly my cup of tea, but They got a lot of talent in there. They used the guys they didn't have matches for or whatever and turned this into an angle match where you could get the right briefcase from the top and get the title shot in it. Of course, the other ones had hardcore weapons in them, such as a staple gun, which Akira shot many staples into many people's heads throughout that match, and there were a few other tricks and treats in those briefcases, but a lot of madness and a lot of lunacy to get to the finish when the last briefcase was there. Munson, do you want to tell us all what happened?
Yeah, so I mean, we get all these briefcases. Of course, coincidentally, every single briefcase gets used before we're getting to that one and final briefcase. Mods Kruger gets there. He ends up getting the contract. Mods Kruger is your victor. And now he has essentially, I'm assuming this is like your money in the banks and your every other thing where it's cash in anytime you want, that it's not a contract for a one-on-one at an event of your choosing, that it's probably more of a insert yourself when said champion's been beaten to the ground, which, knowing what we know about the next event, which we don't want to talk about yet because we haven't even got to our main event here from this one, it almost makes me wonder if that's the case, does Kruger already have an opportunity to change up who's at the top of the, MLW roster here soon? But more on that to come. Yeah, not necessarily our cup of tea, but there was shining moments. Did love that spot that Mr. Thomas did off the ladder over onto the boys and stuff like that.
Man.
He did it with such grace. It was brilliant. Brian saying, I'm happy they did this match first and not as the main event, but it did not create the excitement that they wanted. It was a fitting first opener for what it was, because it had the spot. The spots are what really sold it. That did enough for people. It got some excitement out of the crowd. It's not amazing, but it's a decent opener. What followed it is the kind of the one where I ended up liking the next matchup quite a bit more than I expected to, but it wouldn't have been a good fitting first match. It was better that it went on second because it wasn't a flashy type of match. We had the CMLL Lucha Libre Showcase, Atlantis and Atlantis Jr. versus Blue Panther and Dark Panther. There's a lot of history in that ring, Papa Smokes. A lot of deep history in that ring with a couple of these guys. And they put on a wrestling match, a tag team wrestling match. These are guys that have done lucha all their lives. These are very capable lucha wrestlers, and they gave us more of a wrestling match than a lucha experience. And I was there for it. I really liked this tag team matchup. I thought this was my bigger surprise in terms of the booking on the card for what I enjoyed.
Yes, surprise is what I felt too. I wasn't too sure going into this, thinking, what in the living hell do we have going on here? But because you can see those guys have seen better days in their younger days, kind of thing. But the commentators set it up perfectly well that there's long history between all these guys in Mexico. So you kind of get the feeling that, oh yeah, and then they showed some fire right off the bat. You could see that they showed that there was emotion involved in this match, that various people were pissed off at each other for whatever reasons. But the thing that kind of stuck with me is you had years and years and decades of experience in that ring all at once, of a bunch of guys who have all worked together many, many times before. So to someone who hasn't watched a bunch of those matches, you get to see a prime example of these dudes just putting their experience on display. So yeah, okay, it's the older guys. Maybe a couple of them have lost a step or two here and there. Maybe a couple of them have a little bit of a beer belly going on or whatever. Who cares? These guys can work. And I'm like you. I enjoyed this match a whole bunch. There was, I like lucha to a certain extent for sure, but they didn't go overboard and make this a lucha libre extravaganza. It almost looked like it could have fit in 1970s Georgia wrestling or Southern tag team wrestling. These guys are the journeymen, the craftsmen of Mexican wrestling, and you know that they've been on a million cards and they've got a new audience here, so they want to show off their skill. And they did exactly that. Good match. a match that younger wrestlers can watch and learn something from.
Hell yeah. No, it was a great experience. Atlantis Jr. ended up picking up the victory in this one. Really enjoyed that. So great surprise. Up next is the MLW Women's World Featherweight Championship matchup. It's title versus hair. The champion Janai Kai taking on Delmi Exo. And I wrote in my notes here, Papa Spokes, a couple of things they mentioned, like Janai Kai, champion since Slaughterhouse 2023, putting her at 15 months plus as the champion and undefeated in the company as well, too. Janai has not been defeated in any way, shape, or form in that time frame. So one hell of a run for Janai Kai, who came out of nowhere when she entered into MLW. Meanwhile, they have also kept on Delmi Exo. Delmi has been there really fighting and being at the heart of this featherweight division and has had this elongated feud with Janai Kai, the one that took the belt from her, and her path back to victory. And the way they dressed this up, they made this feel important. They made this feel like this was a rivalry. This had to be settled. You know, this is Delmi's hair might be on the line, but it could also be her last opportunity if she doesn't beat the champion here tonight. And we got a great match, a passionate match between two women who have worked very well together and have been at the forefront of this division. And I got to say kudos to both of them for really carrying this thing on their shoulders.
Oh, well said, Munson. This for sure was one of the better matches on the card tonight, close to the best match, I would say. And it's partly due to the setup of the whole thing. Like you said, Delmi Exo, you remember when they first started that featherweights division in MLW, she was in a tag team, remember, the Sea Stars or whatever, and they were popular back then, but since then she's come to prominence as a singles competitor, and I like her. There's nothing special about Delmi Exo. I don't think her promo is tremendously excellent or anything, but she looks good. She looks nice. She looks like a baby face. And for a hair match coming up, she's got those lovely long Latina locks going on. It was just like, oh no, she's not going to get that shaved off, is she? We'll see, I guess. But I like her as a baby face. And then Janai Kai comes out. She looks like a monster. They call her the kick demon. She looks like a demon, kind of. Her presentation is awesome with that the kind of minimalist hairdo that she has and the kind of bald head. She makes her eyes wild all the time, and then she has those mouth guards that make her mouth look like she has scary metal teeth or something like that. Her gear is real cool, martial arts based gear. And for a heel, she's small, but it doesn't seem to matter. The way she presents herself, the way she attacks with that martial arts skill, she's small, but she's a weasel. She's a honey badger. She's a ferocious fighter. It totally works, in my opinion. I could totally buy her kicking the hell out of a much bigger opponent, which is what she had with Exo, who's quite tall, looks a lot bigger than her. No, it doesn't matter. Kai's very, very good. I also like her because her presentation is unique. There's no one that looks like her in wrestling. She's not trying to be a Harley Quinn clone or anything like that. She's not trying to be this. She's not trying to be that. She's herself, and she looks unique. I love it. And she doesn't look like any other or wrestle like any other lady wrestler that I've seen during this time or really any time. So tip of the hat to her. She's got a great thing going on.
You bet, yeah. So Delmi does pick up the win, becomes the first ever two-time featherweight champion. And I'm going to go to Brian's thing here. Janai Kai has run her course. I wonder if she's moving out of MLW. And again, that's the thing. It's at this point, she's lost the MLW championship. You could run it back again, I guess, with Janai, wanting a return match. But even in MLW's history, that return match thing has not really been something that happens very often. A lot of the times when the heels have come to the end of that, they either go out with a few matches, putting some up and comers over, or they're just out completely. And Brian might be onto something. Janai could have come to that point where, she's been fantastic for the company. And it's not necessarily Janai, the wrestler, that's run her course. It's just her time in MLW, because they've really scratched every bit of thing that they could get out of Janai for this run in the company. They're moving back over to Delmy. It could be Janai's time to move over to somebody else. Maybe she moves over to a TNA wrestling or somebody along those lines where she can then take that next step. Because as you say, Papa Smokes, with the presentation and everything, small or not, Janai comes in like the most dangerous person in the room, and that's how she sells herself. And that's the thing where people say, size doesn't matter in wrestling. You're right. If you can sell yourself as a true ass kicker, I don't care what size you are, you're a true ass kicker. I would not want to have to fight Janai Kai. I'm a big boy. Janai Kai would destroy me in seconds. I would be submitting to going in and trying to even give a handshake to Janai Kai, because that's how afraid I am of her. And that, goes down to a serious presentation and all that kind of thing. She's bigger than speed. Oh, I'm Brian. I've missed your speedball comments. I really have.
Yeah.
She is bigger than Speedball Bailey. You've got that right, man. Oh, but yeah. Well, no, it was, yeah. Go ahead, Pops.
I hate saying this because I hate the MLW and some of the other indies. I don't want to think of them as just breeding grounds for superstars for the big companies, but I really think that this MLW run has probably helped Janai Kai become a TV wrestler, so to speak, even though it's not TV like the big companies have. It's still a particular art to be able to work with the cameras and work with the crew and everything. And I think she would be a very interesting addition to various rosters around the world here, including, you mentioned, TNA, who have a very strong ladies division, or they did until some started leaving for Maple Leaf Wrestling, I guess. But
well, or some are leaving for the WWE by the sounds of it too. So they could use a few new faces.
Absolutely, and also I think of AEW too. They don't have anyone even remotely like that. She could, even the smallest push, I would say Janai Kai could come into that company and literally and figuratively kick some ass over there in the women's division.
Yeah. Point her in the right direction, and you could do wonders with Janai Kai. I'm a true believer in that.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, moving on from there. Again, I forgot to put in my notes where all the huge nonsense goes on with the interview with the Andersons. So you might have to tell me when. Was that before this next match, Papa Smokes, or is it after this next match?
After the next two matches.
After the next two, before the main event, then. Okay,
yeah,
perfect.
Yeah.
Sounds good. And before we go there, it's Astrid up in the house. Astrid, how are you doing? Thanks for joining us on Ring Respect Radio. But yeah, next match up, we have got Kenta taking on Donovan Dijak. They give us a video package to show us kind of the path of this feud that is brewing. Donovan Dijak earlier had taken out Kenta some months ago. Donovan Dijak since then been on an absolute tear in MLW. Watch a TNA. Yes, you would be, because again, Astrid is got making an impact here Fridays on the channel. So if you want to tune in for a review of TNA wrestling every single Friday, you can join Astrid, Mark, and Brett here on OLE for all your TNA conversation. But yeah, this matchup, Pop Smokes, we know Kenta. We've seen Hideo Itami. We know Kenta. We've heard the stories about how damn hard this guy kicks, how vicious he can be in real life. Like, he is a true to life, like, toss it in there as tough as possibly kind of guy. And while he might be a little bit smaller in stature, he sells himself big, and he sells himself as, again, like in that style of Janai Kai, being able to sell themselves as a true fighter. And that's what Kenta does, but he's in big. Dijak is huge and undefeated in MLW so far. A guy that I can visually see them pushing towards that main event picture as well. But yeah, it's absolutely crazy to see this matchup unfold, and it was good. It was a good matchup, despite Saint Laurent and his goofiness on the outside, which the first attempt that he makes in this matchup to create a distraction was a total miss. That did not work out at all and didn't seem relevant. The next one, the involvement made a little bit more sense and helps to create distractions that inevitably lead to the finish of this matchup and potentially save his investment Dijak from eating his first loss. They did this so well in a way that they made it believable that Kenta was going to beat or could beat on any given day without any interference from the outside, that Kenta has Dijak's number. But it was that, that distraction and everything that allowed Dijak the opportunity to continue his winning streak here with this one. Curious to know what you thought, though, of these two in this matchup, Pop Smokes.
Oh, this was another one I liked on this card, and I haven't even watched all that much Dijak from his time in the big company, but same thing with Kenta. I've seen a couple of matches over the years, but I liked this quite a bit. There was nothing fancy about the way they booked or laid out this match. This was classic old school wrestling, so to speak. The babyface Kenta was fighting from underneath with the power of his will and the strength of his strikes, and he was awesome in this match. I think Kenta completely awesome and completely believable. Had the fans behind him. Can I just say quickly, this card was held in Dallas, Texas. I think they said there were 2,500 people there, and what a great crowd. Loved these guys.
Yeah.
And I love when they do the Texas and Mexico shows, because that's where they get the best and the craziest fans. I just had to, before I forgot, give a little nod out to the fans. They were really crazy during that ladders match or that briefcase match at the beginning. But this one also, Dijak was trying to go full heel style and just slow down the momentum of Kenta throughout this entire thing. There was some pretty good wrestling in this. There were lots of holds, lots of good technical stuff and everything. Kenta throwing the heat. He's older than he used to be, but he's still got it, no problem. You wouldn't want to be anywhere near any of those strikes if you were in the ring with him. But obviously MLW going with a little push for Dijak and with the heel manager and everything, gets the distraction, gets the pin, but it didn't really hurt Kenta in any way, I don't think, and just pumped Dijak up towards that main event spot, just nudging him a little bit closer, and maybe that will be a challenger for the MLW World title at some point, whether it's Riddle or whether it's Mads Kruger or somebody else that ends up holding that. You could see Dijak maybe stepping into that challenging spot.
You might just say if he gets into that matchup, it could be a Dijak hijack, kind of like
You're watching OLE, and this is a Dijak hijack.
Finally had an opportunity and it made sense for once, so I had to pull the trigger. But I love what Brian's saying here. I love Dijak. Saint Laurent is horrible. Wish he was a singular force. MSL's clown show kind of makes him seem a little bit softer. Yeah, I mean, this match was solid. I thought the both guys did well. I didn't need the MSL stuff, honestly. I didn't think it sold anything extra on it. It's just unnecessary, a very unnecessary addition to this whole thing. And yeah, I think isn't this where everyone started? No, this wasn't where, or was it? Because Saint Laurent, that's when, because this is when Lawler comes and confronts Saint Laurent, because he would have been in Saint Laurent's group before, and he comes out to confront him, and then we get just a schmoz of stuff going on there for a little while, being separated, almost making me think that Tom Lawler's on his way to being the next opponent to Dijak.
Well, maybe then, and I'm so glad to see Filthy Tom kicking around MLW again. That's a guy that's come to MLW, done runs, left, come back, left, come back. He's always moving around, that guy, but you know that he always likes MLW, and Court Bauer always comes back, and that's such a great guy to have on your roster too, because he's very versatile, can work as a heel or an effective babyface, and he's got that MMA legitimacy behind him too. You can believe that he's dangerous in the ring.
Yeah, you bet. So moving on from there, our other match that I didn't even know this was on the show, and you might have to help me out with some names here, Papa Smokes, because I even think I wrote the second one down. I got Mascara Dorado on there. I've got Averno on there, and how is the other one pronounced or said? Because I've got this spelt, and I don't even know if I got it correctly in there.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the pronunciation. It's Esfinge. So
Okay, I spelt it
Esfinge
correct
or
then. Yeah.
Esfinge. It means sphinx in Spanish.
Okay. Okay.
So interesting name. It's just a little heavy to say. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not exactly sure.
Now, again, this was a little bit more on the lucha side with these three guys. Triple threats aren't always our cup of tea, but there was nothing really that bad about this match. I got, an opportunity to see these guys in action. The commentary really selling the idea that Averno is looking to get back into the title spot against Mystico, the current champion. So great job on selling that. It already had me believing that Averno was winning this matchup, if that's what they're trying to sell me on. But I'm fine with that. If we're going to get Averno versus Mystico as a middleweight championship matchup coming up, then great way to go about it. Having these three guys in the ring, proving that Averno can hang in a triple threat match, being able to defeat two opponents at the same time, and then being able to move back into that title picture. It was great selling that. Nothing too crazy. Nothing that really puts me off of it. Not the best match on the card by any means, but it was good. It was good enough.
Yeah, that's similar to how I feel too. And just like the previous tag team match that we saw with the Luchadors, this was a similar thing like that too. They said that the commentators let us in that there's 20 plus years of conflict brewing between these guys. And again, these were the older luchadors. I mean, some people might say that that's not the talent they want to see, but for me, that's the guys that have been there. That's the guys that have been on the road, have so many matches and so many reps under their belt that I want to watch that in a way, right? I want to know what those guys do when they get a little bit older. If there's a slight loss of speed or anything like that, you just change your style up a little bit and you do more working and less moves kind of. And these guys still did a lot of moves, no question. They're luchadors, but I still like the way they work, and I like to watch the experienced wrestlers get a chance in the spotlight to show how they've grown and how they've evolved throughout their careers.
Yeah, exactly. And this match really allowed it, and it was good. I mean, where it was placed was about right. Give a little bit of separation between that and the main event. Of course, then we would, like you said, this was the segment we had with the interview that came just after it. Was where we get Paul Walter Hauser, the Cobra Kai guy, which I still can't buy him as a wrestler. He's too much of a TV actor goof, and he hasn't really given me wrestler vibes kind of thing. And yet he hangs with the guys in wrestling. I know he's trained. I know he wrestles. I know he's a legitimate guy. Like, he actually knows karate or whatever it is, like, that he's trained in as well too. I'm not, oblivious to any of this kind of stuff, but for some reason he's got that funny TV vibe about him kind of thing. And it's what works in Cobra Kai doesn't necessarily work in a wrestling ring for me. At least not yet. I haven't seen anything yet that sells me on Paul Walter Hauser. He's out there, he does his little thing, and then the Andersons come out, and all of a sudden I'm like, now I'm clued in. Now I want to watch, because I always thought, here we go, the Andersons. Here's something I can get behind. Here's a couple of guys that look old school. They sound old school. They're a tag team together. This is what MLW needs to capitalize on. It's something that necessarily AEW didn't capitalize on, but a perfect opportunity for the tag division moving forward in MLW. So I was definitely glad to hear from the Andersons.
Yeah, pretty cool. And you're ahead of me on this whole thing, Munson, because I didn't know who this guy was at all, and I was trying to follow along with what was being said in this interview. I thought, who is this little guy? He doesn't even look vaguely like a wrestler whatsoever, but he could talk real good, and I was just thinking, who the hell is this? And then I haven't watched Cobra Kai. I've seen The Karate Kid when I was 10 years old or something, but eh, once the Andersons came out, same thing. It kind of clicked over a little bit. these two old school bully style wrestlers come out and, hey kid, you're good at what you do, but stay in your world, stay in Hollywood. This is our world. This is wrestling, and you don't belong here. They sent him off with his tail between his legs. It was a good little segment, and the the you could see that the crowd felt sympathy for Hauser because he just got run off by some tough guys who probably would have put him on his butt if he had stayed there. But then all kinds of mayhem broke out after that.
Yeah, it really did. We had all sorts of run-ins happening, almost too much to follow. Before we mentioned
Yeah.
that, Brian said he'd rather watch the old luchadors wrestle than the old Japanese dudes wrestle and keep giving them titles. Yeah, I agree. Papa Spokes was 10 years old in 1979, according to STG. He's been checking out your profile somewhere, Papa Spokes. I don't know if you can confirm or deny that statement from STG.
It's in the ballpark. It's in the ballpark.
Okay, fair enough.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, a lot of mayhem broke out. Of course, we got the Beaumaye Fight Club because they've had their problems with the Andersons. You know, the supposedly fired Alex Kane comes out in his street gear, looking all sly, looking pretty badass there, and he comes out for a fight as well too. And you know, you got BRG running out and all this mayhem going on. I'm like, even at this point, I was like, I've been checked out long enough to not know what the hell's going on with all the stories here, kind of thing.
Same.
It was a little bit of a cluster.
And they even said Paul London was out there at some point. Oh, I really must have missed something if Paul London's kicking around MLW.
He has been recently. I know that. Hold on here. Hauser said he is legitimately training and is carrying a lot of extra weight because he is filming a Chris Farley movie and will get serious when he is done. Okay, I mean, if he does, cool. I mean, he does. Like when I say he's got that goofy TV vibe, Chris Farley's the first guy that comes to mind with him. So I'm like, you know what? I might be able to get behind Hauser as a Chris Farley guy in a movie. Kind of, maybe that is his calling, is to be Chris Farley in a movie. Good for him. But the ballpark, yes, the ballpark. But no, I again, this got really kind of too much of a cluster for me to follow and understand what was going on. Maybe because I haven't watched recently, so I let it be what it is. It's again, I thought we could have ended with the Andersons being able to cut a promo, kind of introducing us to them, but then all the other stuff breaks loose. What's it going to lead to? I don't know. Is there going to be some sort of big tag team squander at the next event with different teams coming in? We'll see. We'll see if it goes anywhere. If this was just an opportunity to get everybody who was on payroll out to be seen on the main card that night. So.
Hey, Munson, slightly off topic here, but since we're talking about Paul London, what did you ever think of London and Kendrick when they were a tag team?
Yeah. So again, like, not to. I liked them. I mean, I don't know. Like, again, I know that people have got their differences about Brian Kendrick and his personal beliefs and comments and all that kind of stuff.
Did he say some crazy stuff?
You should go listen to it sometime. It's out there.
Yeah, okay.
It is quite.
I think I might have seen something in print that was. I don't know about that one, but
there's a reason that people don't book them anymore. Put it that way. So.
Jesus. Okay. But as wrestlers, I remember watching London and Kendrick in WWE. What year would that have been?
I'd say 02 or 03, somewhere in there, maybe even, or maybe ahead of that. I might be wrong.
I'm not sure either. But I remember thinking, like, what an effective babyface team they were. I saw a few of their matches. I thought this is the next Rock and Roll Express almost. Like they really impressed me, but they didn't stay around the scene very long. I would have totally booked them as baby faces anytime.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Again, it was one of those WWE put them together, and they did the right thing in this case. They worked well together. They were a fantastic team. But as soon as you start separating them and doing the old WWE the Vince thing, let's break these guys apart and let's put them on different shows because, you know, F the world of tag team wrestling. And then you don't have these guys ever follow and start tagging outside of WWE when they're gone from there. So we never got to really have that same experience in terms of keeping them as a team. And yeah, I think it would have been great. I think they would have been a great fit for many companies and everything. And I think that they should be ones doing their it goes at these companies, the experienced guys in those situations. But of course, like I said, for personal reasons, one of the two of them is not really as bookable as the other. But Paul London, I still think the world of Paul London. I'm looking forward to seeing more from him in MLW. See, where he's at this point of his career too.
And London and Kendrick were like some famous tag teams, is that separately they're good. They're still the same wrestler and everything, but separately they don't have it. But together it's good. Like together they make the magic. Just like Motor City Machine Guns kind of thing. Like separately they're both good. They're both awesome. But together there's something special there, right?
Yeah, 100%. I fully agree with you there, Papa Smokes. But yeah, and there's a lot of opportunity. Again, the MLW needs a thriving tag division again. They need some solid teams. The Andersons are there. Maybe there's a few others floating around that they can start getting. That's the one thing. No companies do tag team wrestling all that well. And that is one thing I think a company could thrive upon, is if they had a few solid teams and really had to go at it and did tag team wrestling a little bit more justice than what it gets in the modern time. But as we kind of get to the top of the hour, Papa Smokes, we need to get around to talking about this one. It's the main event of the evening. This match is scheduled for one fall.
One fall.
And it is for the MLW World Heavyweight Championship. The champion, Kojima, taking on the original bro, Matt Riddle. And again, one of those guys, Matt Riddle, very controversial in terms of who he is as a person outside of professional wrestling, and some of the shit he says. He acts like a goddamn goof most of the time that can annoy the piss out of everybody, including myself. But there's one thing he can do, is when he steps inside that ring and that bell goes, the dude can work. He can work a matchup. He is fantastic inside the ring. Solid. He has that MMA background, but he has done a perfect transition to professional wrestling. He's believable as a guy in this position, especially for MLW. Kojima can still hang. Again, I'm with Brian that I didn't need Kojima as champion. I didn't need this long run with Kojima as champion, especially at the hands of taking it away from Alex Kane so abruptly like they did. However, they sold it well of the importance of Kojima as the champion. They sold the fact that they've been having sellout shows during Kojima's run as champion and how that has been very important to the company. So the company itself, with the video packages and commentary, sold the importance of Kojima in this position for MLW, which was fantastic. Great way to sell a main event spot. They sold the idea that Riddle has, the last time he had this kind of opportunity, he didn't strike gold. He didn't get the job done. And since coming to MLW, he's had to fight and claw and work his way through just about everybody they could throw at him to get this one chance, and how much this is his chance to shine, to really gain the gold and to be that face of MLW going forward. This was a solid main event, Papa Smokes. As far as championship matches go in MLW, this one was exactly what it needed to be between these two guys. Sold very well between the two of them. And even in the victory, as they got the celebration from Matt Riddle and he picks Kojima back up, gives him that hug and stuff like that, that passing of the torch moment and everything, the sportsman-like presentation of this whole thing, I was into it. I really was. I thought this was a great match on the card. Riddle is champion. We'll see how far it goes. Again, he's got a world of hurt coming his way in that triple threat, where it's Kojima and Alex Kane, and the looming threat of whether or not Kruger can cash in at any time and possibly insert himself after the match or while all the bodies have hit the floor. How long can Matt Riddle hold on with a target that large on his back is the true question going forward.
Oh, very good question. But just going back to this match, I talked about this a little bit at the beginning of the show, but MLW puts a lot of importance on their main events, which is what every company should do. But they never have a throwaway championship match. They put everything they've got into their championship match and the build towards it. Do you remember some of the great MLW championship matches that you and I watched from the past? When Jacob Fatu was the champion there, when Alexander Hammerstone was the champ, when Filthy Tom Lawler was the champ, they always put on a good show for the main event. They leave a big chunk of time for it. They put a nice video package that explains everything beforehand, introduces both wrestlers as wrestlers and as people to a certain extent, also giving you the round picture of what they're like and the lead up to this match, and the tail of the tape, all the little sporting details that you need to know, pictures of them facing each other, kind of, and it gets you into it. It gets you ready for this big fight. It gives it the big fight feel, as they like to say. And yeah, they've been going with Kojima. Again, they've been using a sense of history with Kojima because if anyone remembers back in the early 2000s, he was the first MLW champion. The company was a lot different then and all that stuff, but they've been around long enough that they do have 20 almost years of history kind of to draw from. So just that alone, that Kojima was the first champion from the past, but all these years later, climbed the mountain again, came back and won it again. That's a nice little angle to
The
run.
only two-time champion in history as well, too.
For sure, for sure. And then Matt Riddle comes in as the new guy, so to speak, and he's from the big company. Everybody knows who he is, and he's got this goofy persona, kind of that seems like it's non-serious all the time. But then before that match, also they showed Filthy Tom Lawler and Matt Riddle having a little talk, and you got the sense that Riddle was saying, "Hey man, you helped me a lot. You know everything about Kojima. Like we worked on so much stuff that I feel like maybe I can be confident coming into this. I think I got this, dude." And that was kind of neat to see that he was training with another MLW former world champion and all that. But also, didn't you kind of get the feeling in that segment too that Filthy Tom wasn't revealing all of his cards there either? And I have the feeling that he might turn on Matt Riddle and end that friendship at some point. So a couple of little possibilities coming up in that. And then for the match, pretty good. A world title match. They kept it to, what was it, 13, 14 minutes, something like that.
Nice and simple.
Didn't even, yeah, exactly. It doesn't need to be any longer than that. And they got all their stuff in. Riddle's got some cool stuff. Both the guys can be know the shoot fighting style if they want to, so it adds a little edge to it to know that these guys are probably doing a little bit of real grappling just for laughs throughout this match, just to challenge each other a little bit. It adds that nice little bit of realisticness and believability to this title match, not to mention some big hard-hitting shots and a couple of big high-impact spots. But coming out with Matt Riddle as the champion, I can see why they did that too. He's a bit of a household name from his time in the big companies. Shouldn't say a household name, but he is known by all wrestling fans, basically. So having him have a run with the title gets some eyeballs on the MLW product, or gets a few gums flapping about what's going on in the company. Where they go from this point in the future is undetermined at this point. But I think it's a good idea to switch the belt at this time to Matt Riddle. He's got a name, he's got a background, he's got a persona, and a lot of people recognize him. So there you go, MLW champion. It's someone we've all heard of.
Well, and at the same time, they're building some people back to that position as well, too. Like Matt Riddle's now the champion. They're inserting Alex Kane back into this position. You know, you've got Mods Kruger looming, who's in that position. You've also got Dijak building up. You've got Kenta building up. You've got all these other moving parts of guys who legitimately can make for good one-on-one matchups for whomever the champion may be. So that is what we always liked about MLW. It felt like once Kojima grabbed that belt, there was just this little bit of a drop-off where it didn't feel like there was an importance on building towards that main event level threat. And that's, I think, where my disconnect came about from some of it, aside from some of the lower level goofiness that was on the shows as well too. And it's not a discredit to Kojima. I don't have a problem with Kojima in MLW. It's just that the way it went about having him champion to beat Alex Kane when Alex Kane was red hot, having some great matchups at the top of the card, it just didn't fit right for me. But this was right. This was good. The passing of the torch. Say what you want about Riddle. I think he's the right guy for the job as of right now. And again, we have all those moving parts. And like, not to mention even a guy like Matthew Justice, who happens to be the national openweight champion as well too. He's a big boy. He's got a good look. He can work as well. Like him a whole hell of a lot. So we've got a lot of guys that are kind of in that line for being able to step up. And like you said, there's the moving part of Filthy Tom, who said, yes, Riddle's beat him a couple times in recent history, but Filthy Tom, when he wants to switch it on and he turns on somebody, we could get one hell of a fight for the championship between these two guys.
Very much so. So watching this card then was good for me in a lot of ways, because it got us back to, it got my mind back to the things that I liked about MLW, the things that I like about MLW. And yeah, I mean, the roster isn't very strong anymore. They're trying to build up. They're trying to draft from within, so to speak, to get a young roster, to get some international guys. I like this idea. I still think that it's a good formula. I still think it works for a wrestling company, but I still think just having seen the glory days of 2018 to 2020 or whatever it was just such a hot period. It's hard to look at this and look back at that and see the same thing. But again, I still think that they're doing good work, and I like their business model and their wrestling booking sort of models, so to speak, about getting different kinds of talent in and just building some angles and then trying to get some young guys up through the levels of the card. It's good. It's a winning strategy for a wrestling company. I hope they can keep it up.
Yeah, I really do too. Looking forward to watching the Super Fight next month and having Andre on the show with us. It's going to be a hell of a time. But we have just tipped ourselves a little over the hour because we're so excited to talk about MLW again, Papa Smoke. So we are going to get off the airwaves here in just a moment. But before we do that, let's spend a little money and get that fancy ass ticker on the screen so you tell the people where you're at.
All right, everybody. I can be found on Elon Musk's free speech wonderland known as X. I am at smokes_Papa. And I can also be found on Twitch at Papa_Smokes_.
Fantastic. As for myself, Bobby Munson, you can find me on the X at Real Bobby Munson, Instagram and Threads at Video Bros SK, Twitch Video Bro _Bobby Munson, over at the Blue Sky. Just search Bobby Munson. You'll find me on there. Where you can find me here is every Sunday, Point of View with the boys, talking all things sports, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Tune in for that. Saturdays with that man beside me, Papa Spoke, calling all the action for Prairie Pro Wrestling. Make sure you subscribe to our channel over there, because guess what, Papa Smokes? This Saturday, it's the TLC match for the first time in PPW's history. So make sure you check in that out. It is going to be a hell of a show. Outside of that, back here next Thursday night for our trivia night. So stay tuned for that. We hope that you're all ready to join in and partake. And all this stuff can be found right here at OLE Podcast, our local establishment, across all social media platforms, as well as YouTube and Twitch. Make sure to like, follow, subscribe. Leave us a comment if you're watching afterwards, as we will get back to you. We want to thank each and every one of you for following along, joining us here on Ring Respect Radio. And for myself, Pop Smokes, take care, and we'll see you next Thursday night.